welcome. I'm Barkha and you're watching The Mojo Story, our independent digital platform that brings you a deep dive into the big stories of the day. On the program today, the India-China disengagement has now become a political hot potato. Opposition leader Rahul Gandhi accused Prime Minister Modi of ceding territory to China. The centre hit back with a 9-point rebuttal to Rahul Gandhi's charges. We'll be looking at the charge and the counter-charge and also the centre's response on this special broadcast. But first, let's take a look at exactly what the Congress leader alleged.
The defense minister comes and makes a statement. And we find that Indian troops are now going to be stationed at Finger 3. Finger 4 is our territory. That is where our post used to be. So now we have moved from Finger 4 to Finger 3. Why has Prime Minister Modi given up Indian territory to the Chinese? I am saying that it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister to protect the territory of this country. The Prime Minister has ceded Indian territory to the Chinese. It is his responsibility to solve that problem. How he does it is his problem, not mine.
So strong charges there coming from Rahul Gandhi. The centre did respond with a detailed rebuttal, and we'll bring you the special features of that rebuttal as well. But let's introduce on the broadcast today our experts. I want to welcome to the program Lt Gen Satish Dua, who is of course the former General Officer Commanding of the 15 Corps. Sushant Sareen is with us, Strategic Affairs Analyst at the Observer Research Foundation. And Colonel Ajai Shukla, who's a well-known journalist and has also served in the Indian military, is with us. Welcome all. I'll start with you, General Dua, if I can. This reference of Finger 3, Finger 4 for the uninitiated is, of course, a reference to areas around the Pangong Tso lake where the process of disengagement has begun. An army video actually shows tanks being pulled back. The army says 3 Chinese tanks and 1 Indian tank being pulled back in these pictures. But what Mr. Gandhi is actually alleging is that somewhere effectively the contours of the line of actual control have been shifted because there will be no more patrolling by Indian troops at what is called Finger 4. Instead, we are moving back one feature. How do you as a military man see what's happening at the Pangong Tso lake, and are you worried that we have agreed to stop patrolling at the Finger 4 area?
Barkha, let me try and put things in the correct perspective. Finger 4, Finger 8, that area is north of Pangong Tso. The tanks, etc., that we see pulling out, we saw the images, clips yesterday, was south of Pangong Tso. We are now talking about, when we talk about any area, whether it is the Finger area or any other area, there are 2 different things that we all need to understand. One is post and the second is patrolling. Post is where we have a presence, that is our troops are stationed there to safeguard an area or to watch over an area. Patrolling is, as the word implies, you patrol a certain area. Since we have differing perception of LAC at several points, in most of the places, so there is norm and the patrolling, both sides patrol up to their perception of the line of actual control. And similarly, the Chinese side would come and patrol up to their perception of the line of actual control. So now coming to Finger 4 and Finger 8. Our post, Dancing Thapa post, has always been at Finger 3. In fact, it is in lee of Finger 3, slightly before as towards our side of Finger 3.
Okay.
The Chinese post is at Finger 8. And while they're patrolling, while they used to patrol, before all this happened last year, they used to patrol up to Finger 4, and we used to patrol up to Finger 8. Our patrol would be, in this manner, their perception was up to, patrolling was up to Finger 4. So we've never had a post head of Dancing Thapa post. For the present moment, all the patrolling has been suspended temporarily, as was stated by the Raksha Mantri.
Yes.
So to say that we have ceded territory or our territory was up to Finger 4 would not be correct, because our territory is not up to Finger 4. As per our perception of LAC itself, our perception goes to Finger 8.
So let me try and break this down in very simple terms for lay people, General Dua. What you're saying is that we never actually had a post at Finger 4. It was patrolling, and therefore there is no question of ceding territory. That's very simply what you're saying. So therefore, Rahul Gandhi's allegation, which of course is well beyond the Pangong Tso area, and we'll look at that in a moment. But you're saying as far as this Finger 4, Finger 3 controversy is concerned, we never even built a post at what is called Finger 4. Is that correct?
That is true.
Okay. Before I bring in Ajay, I just want to bring up what the center has actually said. As we said, Rahul Gandhi posed 5 questions to the Prime Minister. The center has hit back with 9 points. And if we can start bringing up these responses, the center has said that India has not conceded any territory at all in a sharp rebuttal to Rahul Gandhi's allegations. But it has gone on to acknowledge that there are what are referred to as outstanding problems, and it has named 3 spaces where these outstanding problems exist: Hot Springs, Depsang, and Gogra. This is an official acknowledgement from the Ministry of Defense in a statement that is countering Rahul Gandhi. It also goes on to say that these outstanding issues will be addressed after the Pangong Tso disengagement is completed, and in fact they'll be addressed within 48 hours of that disengagement in Pangong Tso Lake. And it makes obviously a reference to Nehru in an indirect sort of way, bringing up Aksai Chin and saying that actually, if you talk about territory, then the territory of India is as depicted by the map, including Aksai Chin, which remains within China's capture at the moment. So, Ajay, that's the counter we see from the Ministry of Defense. You also have General Dua arguing that in any case, you never had a post at Finger 4, so the question of ceding territory doesn't arise. Your response?
I completely welcome this statement by the Ministry of Defense. The points that the clarity that it imparts to the situation should actually have been imparted by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh in a statement to Parliament yesterday. It addresses 2 key concerns that the opposition seems to be bringing up. The first is this issue of how the area between Finger 4 and Finger 8, which India has traditionally patrolled, and India has always been going up to Finger 8. Why is India no longer patrolling this? This is a question that had remained unanswered. The second question that remained unanswered was that while the agreement between India and China resolves the problem at Pangong Tso, there are bigger problems at Depsang. There's another problem at Gogra and Hot Springs. Why has that not been addressed? Is it a concession being given to China, a lesser concession, whereas China gets hold of a larger gain in those other areas? This afternoon's statement by the Ministry of Defense comprehensively clarifies these issues. I, as a defense analyst, am completely satisfied with this statement. If those issues are being addressed in 48 hours from now, wonderful. If they can work out a disengagement plan there, perfect. It also imparts a lot of clarity on another issue, which is where is India's claim line? Everybody keeps talking about where India ends, but it's important to know where India's claim lines are. And it says very clearly that India's claim lines are not Finger 4 or Finger 8, but the whole of the Aksai chain. That is what our claim line is. And as for where we have been patrolling, that is exercising our impression of where the line of actual control runs. That is Finger 8. And it is marked by these 2 posts, the Chinese forward post, which was near Finger 8, and the Indian forward post, Dansing Thapa post, which is near Finger 3. So I think the statement is a very good one. It sets new standards in clarity and frankness. And rather than batting accusations back and forth, you need this kind of clarity in government statements.
And you believe this clarity was missing in the defense minister's intervention, after which Rahul Gandhi has made the comments that he has. When you look at the patrolling issue, the fact that we will not be patrolling anymore at Finger 4, does that concern you? General Malik, former army chief on this program, yesterday said that even the non-patrolling has to be a temporary position. It is not a permanent position. You will eventually have to go back to patrolling these areas that you have currently agreed to step back from. Do you agree with that, Ajay?
Yes. We were patrolling up to Finger 8. The Chinese were patrolling up to Finger 3, Finger 2. They have said they will not patrol forward of Finger 8. We have said we will not patrol forward of Finger 3. So there is an agreement. There is an honorable agreement over there. which I completely welcome. I think that this is the whole problem of accusations and counter accusations come when there's no frankness and clarity.
So, in a sense, Sushant, I think what I'm hearing Ajay saying is that if this is the kind of detailing that had been done by the minister in Parliament yesterday, then you would not have seen the kind of press conference that the opposition has held today. How seriously do you take, beyond what you may think of him or not think of him, the charge that has come from Rahul Gandhi that did then propel the government to put out this kind of detailing?
Barkha, my own take is that these charges would have flown regardless of how much clarity there is or there isn't in what the defense minister says or anybody else says. That's the nature of politics. That's the kind of politics we see in India. So that doesn't come as any surprise to me, frankly. So from me, it's not even a very serious issue. This to and froing of political statements by either side. I think for me, what is important is the deal which has been worked out. Yes, it's a temporary deal. I have, there's a nagging suspicion in my mind. Maybe Ajay is right that this is an honorable kind of a deal and both sides are going to honor it. But will they actually honor it? And from the Chinese side, we've seen that once sufficient time passes, the salami slicing starts all over again. Purely from a very conservative angle, to not patrol up to the point where you are supposed to be patrolling, even if it's only till the LAC. I think that in itself is a bit of a problem as far as I am concerned, because ultimately it then kind of leads to a change in whatever the status quo ante was. So apart from that, I think the rest of the deal, which seems to have worked out, there is one more problem which I have, although I would wish either General Dua, who's a far more experienced person than any of us, or Ajay would clarify, is on the southern bank. The that we went on to the heights at on the Kailash range, we occupied those, was what really rankled with the Chinese, what really troubled them. So apart from the larger strategic aspects, on the tactical level, that was something which was really riling the Chinese. And if you look at the previous negotiations which were taking place, all these 8 odd rounds which had taken place, one of the insistence of the Chinese was that we withdraw from that in the first instance, to which we were not ready to do. Now, my point is that once we agree to step back from those heights, which we would have to, because it was our insistence that status quo ante has to be restored. And in a sense, when we ascended those heights, we also went against the status quo ante. We changed the status quo. But the thing is that, do we have similar leverages in the other 3 hotspots which have been mentioned today in the statement of Defense Ministry? And if you don't have that leverage out there, then what are the possibilities, or what is the optimism that anybody has that you will reach some kind of a solution over those areas?
That's a fair question, and let me take that to General Dua. The 3 areas that have been named, and Hot Springs and Depsang among them, and this very definitive time frame that within 48 hours of the Pangong Tso disengagement, if we do not have a sort of strategic advantage in these spaces, why would the Chinese listen? How would you address these issues within 48 hours of this particular disengagement?
So let me break this down into 2 parts. Firstly, the talks that have taken place and the agreement for disengagement was in areas where troops were in a confrontational post in proximity to each other, which could have turned into a flashpoint at any time. Depsang plains, for example, like I was earlier talking of 2 different things, post and patrolling. Depsang plains is more an issue of patrolling rights. Depsang issue has been a separate flashpoint, not as of last year. It has been a bone of contention since the first time it was 19 years ago, in 2002. In 2013, we had a big standoff which lasted 3 weeks. Similarly, forces were deployed, and there was during that summer in 2013 there was a standoff. The issue was eventually resolved. So even now, the issue there is of patrolling rights. There are no permanent presence. I mean, that is hindering us in Depsang Plain, in the Depsang Plain as such. So that is an ongoing issue, and which also has been, which is also said the last sentence, that it should be resolved in the next meetings in the next 48 hours.
So none of this, in your opinion, then, is actually a dispute over territory. Now, Ajay, before I come to you, we had also a kind of kerfuffle over General VK Singh, now Minister, former Army Chief, quoted early this month as saying that India had also committed transgressions today, issuing a clarification, because China, of course, then jumped on those statements, and he basically said that the 7th February statement was misattributed, and what he was really talking about was the differing perceptions of the line of actual control. In fact, he went on to say these remarks have been maliciously distorted, and he was only talking about the fact that it was very difficult to define transgressions in these areas because there was such differing sort of perceptions over where the line stood. Now, how much importance should we place on this sort of VK Singh controversy, General VK Singh's controversy, Ajay?
Well, it was, if the statement was made at all, and it has been correctly reported, it was an unwise statement. He said something that should never have been said. That having been put on the table, the fact is that what he said was absolutely true. Each side is patrolling up to their perception of the line of control, and that means that one man's patrol is another man's transgression, because you're crossing over into their side. But that is sort of a secondary issue. What is important is that the Indian leadership has to understand and has to comprehend and has to arrive at a clear understanding of how they refer to such issues. For India and for its leadership, you cannot turn around and say, but Chinese have their perceptions too. We are here to outline our perceptions. For us, Aksai chain is a part of India. Patrolling point number 8 is the point where the line of actual control runs. But at no stage can our Indian leadership start saying that China's perception is this and our perception is that, and therefore both sides are justified in we have to have a certain clarity about where our position lies, and in that, General VK Singh went, I think, beyond his brief.
But Sushant, picking up on this comment by Ajay that one man's patrolling is another man's transgression, should we then be so sanguine over this agreement over what spaces will not be patrolled? And even when General Dua speaks about Depsang, it is in terms of patrolling or not patrolling. Are we then to measure the contours of the line of actual control only by where fortifications are put up and not by patrolling?
No, I think look, if you cannot patrol up to what you claim to be the line of actual control. Forget about the border, what you claim to be your borders. If you can't patrol up to there, then frankly, what is your claim to that area? So you have to be able to patrol and to say that, yes, that is my perception, but I'm not going to be able to patrol over there. Yeah, I can understand a temporary arrangement, but that temporary arrangement should not become a permanent arrangement. To my mind, I think the problem in Depsang, apart from the fact that your patrolling is being obstructed, is also that there has been an amassing of forces by the Chinese very close to the line of actual control, which is a clear and present threat as far as we are concerned to our positions out there. And I think one of the things, if you're going to be talking about de-escalation, de-induction, has to be done. Those troops have to be pulled back so that the threat perception is reduced considerably. So there will be 2 points insofar as places like Depsang is concerned. One, that your patrolling rights have to be ensured. And secondly, that your threat perceptions have to be addressed by the Chinese, who moved in a lot of troops and heavy artillery, also armor. And they have to pull that back so that, you can be a little easy. And then, of course, there has to be this thing that how fast can they deploy in those areas? Because then you have to make sure that, they don't catch you by surprise the next time. So I think there are multiple issues. I'm sure the officials who are engaging in 16-hour-long negotiations are going to be bothered about each and every granular detail before they agree on something. But to the larger point which you are making, frankly, if you're not going to be able to patrol to what you claim to be the line of actual control, then you really have no claim over it.
To that extent, Sushant, are you troubled by the agreement to patrol now at Finger 3 instead of Finger 4 around Pangong Tso Lake? Are you troubled by that?
I'm not troubled. I would go along with what Ajay is saying, that look, this is a temporary kind of an arrangement, and both sides have agreed, that they'll be stepping back. So it's a kind of a no man's land right now. Nobody is going to be entering into that land. But at the end of the day, until and unless you are going to be able to restore your, patrols into that area, frankly speaking, a no man's land doesn't really is of no comfort to me as an Indian. So yes, for now, as a first step to a larger understanding to de-escalate, this thing which has started since last year. I think this is a good first step. I don't have any quibbles over it, except for should we have sequenced it better? Could we have kind of lumped that? Okay, fine, we have reached an understanding on Pangong. This stays on paper. Let us reach an understanding on the other areas, and then we have a kind of a package, and we move forward on all areas simultaneously. Maybe that was one way of doing it. Perhaps in their own wisdom, they decided that this was a lower hanging fruit. Let's pluck this first. Let's build confidence and move on to the next, somewhat more intractable issues. Perhaps that was the understanding. I'm open to it. I as long as things move forward, I don't have a problem with it. Nobody wants, a shooting match out there. Nobody wants a war. Nobody wants hostilities to break out. So if you are moving towards an understanding and an agreement and de-escalation, all the better for it. But to think that this is being, a kind of a path-breaking kind of a thing, I think it's just the first step in the larger move.
So I think then, General Dua, the question would then become, what would make the Chinese also recognize these patrolling agreements as temporary? Why would the Chinese not insist that they remain permanent? That would be the first question. And the second would be the militarization, the military buildup. I don't imagine that is going to change, that you are probably looking now at a permanent militarization of these areas, which raises other kinds of questions for preparedness. General Dua?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that to me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Barkha. You'll have to please repeat that.
I'm saying that why would the Chinese look at this patrolling agreement as temporary, and what happens to the military buildup given the shadow of Galwan? I don't think the militarization is going to reduce.
True. As far as patrolling is concerned, let me just take that first. And both Sushant and Ajay have referred to it in their own ways. I'd like to clarify, as they both have also said, it's the no patrolling bit during these times is a temporary arrangement. To address what Sushant said about patrolling, also is the fact that why this has been taken up earlier and separately, and whole thing is not bundled. At the expense of repetition, I'd like to state that it is because they were giving importance to those areas where we are in a close proximity, and that could turn into a flashpoint at any time, and that's why this agreement has been reached. As regarding the military, regarding the military buildup, well, this is going to be a long haul. The process of disengagement itself is not going to be executed in a hurry. Each step that one pulls back, it will be verified by images, drones, and verified by patrolling later. Now, so all that is going to take time. So during that time, we are not going to see a significant de-escalation soon. When the tanks were moving back, the visuals are going to stay with us for a very long time. But they are not moving back down to the plains. So the buildup will stay, albeit pulled back, that we are not in a confrontationist mode, which leads to a flashpoint. And eventually, once we have enough trust and we verified the facts, we hope that there will be de-escalation and build-up as well.
Okay, I do want to come back to the militarization, but I'll take that to Ajay and then we can go around the panel in closing comments. Ajay, was this anything that Rahul Gandhi posed at his press conference in those 5 questions that you do believe needs to be examined more seriously? The government has responded to the main charge on conceding territory, but
I don't
anything
know.
else?
I don't know whether Rahul referred to it so explicitly, but he referred to it in an indirect fashion. And that was this question of India agreeing to a demilitarization of the South Pangong Tso Lake area, where India had captured dominating positions and was holding the better of the deployment, looking down on the Chinese.
Yeah.
There are serious questions to be asked whether this, since this was our trump card, this was the one place where we were dominating the Chinese. Should this have been conceded to the Chinese in the first phase of the disengagement plan? Or should India have held this back as a trump card in its hand and conceded it only at a later stage when we were sure that the Chinese were going to disengage and fall back in Gogra Hot Springs and in Depsang as well? So to that extent, I think this is a question that remains to be asked. If it means that India has now got a higher degree of trust in China, then that's well and good.
But where would that trust? What would be the basis of that trust, Ajay? Why would there suddenly be trust?
Well, when senior corps commanders have had talks for 12 and 16 hours on 9 separate occasions, a certain rapport does build up after a period of time. Either you trust each other or you don't trust each other. And if you don't trust each other, then no agreement is going to come out of that engagement anyway. So I'm assuming that since India is doing a withdrawal and since India has conceded its trump card in the first phase of the disengagement.
But do we know for sure that that has happened? Do we know for sure that that has happened?
Yeah, the Ministry of Defense has itself in its statements, both Rajnath Singh yesterday in Parliament and in today afternoon statement, conceded that we are disengaging in both the North Bank and the South Bank of Pangong Tso. So this is a fact. This there's no question about. But one other point here that I think is important, Barkha, is that Sushant is mentioning China's sort of the possibility that China may go back, may resile, may not adhere to its commitments. I get the distinct impression that China believes that it has strategically miscalculated in this entire engagement of India, this entire entry into India. They had not catered for the strength of the Indian response. They had not catered for the fact that India would go willing to sustain a full-scale winter deployment. And I think that they, along with the fact that they are pushing India towards the Quad, that India is now sort of taking action, economic action against China, they really, I think, are beginning to get the impression that they have bitten off more than they can chew. And that will go towards in India's favor, thanks to the Jawans who sustained the deployment.
Absolutely, but I do want Sushant to come in here and then General Dua can respond to both of you, because Sushant, this is also what you were asking about the heights that the Indian military had actually gained in that South Bank area of Pangong Tso, which brought the Chinese or compelled them to the dialogue table in a way, and Ajay making the point that perhaps it was not smart to have given up that trump card.
Yeah, so look, that question certainly is there, but like I said, that should this whole thing have been bundled together, and until and unless you had an agreement on all the outstanding issues related to the current standoff, nothing would move forward? Or should you have said that, okay, fine, this is an area on which we can reach an agreement, let's do this, and this will build the necessary trust and confidence so that you are, in a better position to move forward on the other more, contentious issues. So it's a judgment call for the people in power, and we'll see how it plays out. But like I said, because maybe I'm a deeply suspicious person by nature, especially of our neighbors, both of them, maybe it's me who considers it in this manner. Perhaps people who have a better knowledge might have a different opinion. So that is one part of it. The other part of it is that, on the strategic thing, I think everything which Ajay has said is true. But surely, since we give the Chinese so much of brain and we give them so much of credit for thinking 50 years ahead and all of that, stuff which we have made them 10 feet tall. Look, 5 years back, somebody could have told you that if they were going to continue needling you in this way, they are tempting fate. They are pushing India away. They are pushing India into the embrace of the Americans. They are going to be pushing India into other alignments. Their economic all of this was known. Either the Chinese are so dumb that they didn't understand all of this, or they thought that they could get away with it. So, as far as the strategic angle is concerned, I think, and this is related to with the question of militarism or militarization of this area. I don't see how you can stop the militarization of this area, because whatever else you might say, I think the trust deficit is now going to be there for the foreseeable future, which means that you're not going to be able to take 2 months next time to build up your force. This time, you have to be in a position to be able to, reach the borders, build up your infrastructure, do all of that in double haste. So I think the militarization is a given. There's no way we can back off from it. My only problem is, and where I think I was wrong, I thought that, once we had captured those heights, status quo ante was not going to be on the table anymore, because there's no way we are going to come back from those heights because of the kind of advantages it gives us. But I think the government has decided in its wisdom that it's a deal worth doing. So let's see how it plays out.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes for last comments. General Dua, quickly, one on giving up these heights, and two, on this area kind of being the new Siachen. I think we forget that there were close to 50,000 troops eyeball to eyeball. Now, the military has war-gamed for a two-front war for a long time, and you're not looking at that, but you are certainly looking at a two-front mobilization, perhaps permanently, which is with Pakistan on the LOC and with the Chinese at the LAC.
Firstly, status quo ante means going back, and if that has been decided, we will have to move out from these advantageous heights that we've occupied. How it is going to be sequenced is a matter of detail that must have been worked out. It is not in public domain, and it doesn't have to be. So maybe the I beg your pardon, the sequencing ensures that we have our reassurances and only then we pull back. It's not to, and I'd like to add one more sentence on this topic of heights, is it's not so much as if once you pull back, it's also to see you deny it to the other side. That means they cannot come and occupy. And how soon can you occupy it again should, God forbid, the need arise. So that's the operative or the tactical part of these heights.
Yeah. Ajay, very quickly, sorry, you wanted to say, General, go ahead.
On the deployment and the line of actual control will never perhaps go back to being to a status quo ante in terms of deployment. How thick our deployment will remain and how much we will thin out will depend on the progress that we make in de-escalation and pulling back, and the trust that we establish with each other. But that is going to take a really long time. It's not going to happen in a month or 2 months or maybe a season or 2 seasons, and then but it will never be same again, that's for sure. Like Sushant mentioned, we will always retain the ability to come back to the fastest with the mostest.
And therefore, very quickly, Ajay, last word before I close. Those tanks, as General Dua said, are not pulling back to the plains. This is not de-escalation, it's disengagement, and the two are very different. We are looking, at least in the foreseeable future, at permanent mobilization of our troops.
Yes, the crisis as it has unfolded over the last 9 months has changed the thinking at a completely strategic level of the Indian Army. No longer is Pakistan the main threat. No longer will 2/3 of the Indian Army be deployed facing Pakistan. Reallocations of operational roles have already taken place. I don't want to go into which particular formations, but there is a larger percentage, a significantly larger percentage of Indian troops facing the Chinese now. So to that extent, the Chinese have rolled the dice and they are getting consequences from the Indian side that perhaps they should have and perhaps they did bargain for. So at the trust and so on comes after a lot of time. It takes great help. I mean, look at Siachen. The Indian Army has refused to withdraw from Siachen purely because there was a trust deficit with Pakistan and there was a belief that our withdrawal could be followed by Pakistani occupation. So the same thing will operate with the Chinese. Let's hope, for the sake of peace tenures of the Indian Army, that we can find a modus vivendi where so much of distrust doesn't come in that you're practically poised all the time at the brink of redeployment. Hopefully that will not be the case. I trust our senior officers will manage the negotiations accordingly.
But of course, it's a long haul. And as General Dua said, it could take not just one season or 2 seasons, but several years. We'll leave it there. Thank you for the clarity. I think a lot of us have finally understood what's actually happening and how long this process could take. Ajay, to all of you, General Dua, Ajay Shukla, and Sushant, Sareen, thank you. And to our audience, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Thank you and goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.